he spoke to me about how proud he was of her, the family she had made for herself, and all of her accomplishments. Two of the songs that we heard at the wedding reception were Hot, Hot, Hot and Harvest Moon. And of course, Jerry requested them. And yes, he and Glenna tore up that dance floor. That brings me to share with you the reason why we're at the Jubilee Pavilion and why we selected for this event. Glenna and Jerry have many fond memories of attending dances and weddings here. Jerry was an Oshawa boy through and through, and believed in supporting in local businesses, especially during this time. He was born and raised in Oshawa by his parents, Catherine and Samuel Skochko, along with his late brother, Walter. He grew up in the 7th with his good friends and many pets. He would love that we'd all come together here today to celebrate. Glenna has also asked me to thank Angela, who is the event coordinator for the Jubilee Banquet Hall and Conference Center, for her assistance with the planning for today's celebration of life. We are pleased and honored to have the presence of the Oshawa Fire Department here today, and we are thankful for all of their support and assistance that they have shown to Glenna and family. Jerry was so proud to be a firefighter with the Oshawa Fire Department. As Jerry's son Jeff said so wonderfully in Jerry's obituary, they say firefighters never die. They just burn forever in the hearts of the people whose lives they saved. Jerry joined the Firefighters Association when he was just 19 years old. He was one of the first alarm cadets hired, and he became a full firefighter at the young age of 21, going on to serve the city of Oshawa for 30 years. At this time, I'd like to introduce Derek Clark, Fire Chief and for the Oshawa Fire Department, to say a few words.
I'm used to that.
Okay.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's an honor and a privilege to be here on behalf of Oshawa Fire today to speak about our colleague and friend Jerry. Although it's a sad day for many of us, today we come together to celebrate Jerry's life and all that he's done for the department and the city of Oshawa. My name is Derek Clark. I'm the current Fire Chief of Oshawa Fire Services. I had the privilege of working with Jerry for over 10 years prior to his retirement. Jerry joined Oshawa Fire Service, as noted earlier, on January 31st, 1966, and retired November 30th, 1997, a career spanning over 30 years. Born and raised in Oshawa, Jerry began his career in his 19th year in the alarm room and was one of the first alarm cadets ever hired. Jerry went on from his job and role as an alarm cadet to a first-class firefighter, and he started that career at the age of 21. Jerry held the rank of first-class firefighter throughout his career. The job of a firefighter is to run into danger when everybody is running out. I can tell you Jerry was a leading example of that, both on and off the job. Jerry served Oshawa Fire Service with distinction, honor, every day, and he wore the uniform with pride. Serving as co-chair of the Oshawa Firefighters Muscular Dystrophy Association, Jerry helped raise thousands of dollars for that deadly disease. Jerry also worked in the Folk Arts Council, and I specifically remember how hard Jerry worked at the Fiesta Pavilion at St. Gregory's. I was lucky to be a part of that. Jerry served at the pavilion, making sure the public was sure and the bar had everything it needed, and everything ran smoothly. I can still see him running up and down the back of the bar with sweat burning off his brows. Jerry faced many challenges in his career and his life, but I can't recall Jerry ever having a bad day. At least he never showed it. I worked with Jerry at Station 3 And we all knew Jerry had trouble with his knees and his elbows, but you would never know it. I witnessed many shifts with Jerry working in a lot of pain. And again, he never complained, and he never let you know that he was having difficulty. We all know Jerry's infectious smile and that giggle, especially when you knew he was pulling one over on you. We had a lot of fun and a lot of camaraderie back in those days. Jerry was a big part of that, along with Haas, Chester, Barney, Stan, Andy, Rick, Joe, George, and the whole gang on 2A. Jerry had a way of making an uncomfortable situation not so difficult. As a young firefighter, when I was transferred to Station 3, one of my duties was to begin driving. I had no idea what I was doing. Jerry was one of my teachers and mentors that taught me to operate and drive an aerial truck and a pumper truck, and to do it without having the fear of making a mistake. He was a veteran on the job, and he provided guidance and experience about the equipment, buildings, and the responses. Jerry knew the streets, he knew the buildings, and he knew the trucks. He had a calm, cool, collective, calming presence about him. However, if you crossed the line, he would make you aware of it. You would know. Jerry had our respect, and I can tell you that Jerry approached his career and role of a firefighter with pride, compassion, and dignity, and integrity. On behalf of Oshawa Fire Services and the City of Oshawa, I want to thank Jerry, Lana, and the whole family for the 31 years of service. Jerry will be remembered as a fond fabric and proud tradition of Oshawa Fire Services. Firefighters like Jerry have paved the way for all of us, and we proudly serve in his memory. In the fire service, we have a long-standing tradition. One is the firefighter's prayer. We recite when one of our own is taken too soon. I would like to read that prayer for you now. Thank you. When I am called to duty, God, wherever flames may rage, give me the strength to save some life, whatever be its age. Help me embrace a little child before it is too late, or save an older person, the horror of the fate. Enable me to be alert and hear the weakest shout, and quickly and efficiently put the fire out. I want to fill my calling and give the best in me to guard my every neighbor and protect their property. And if according to your will, I have to lose my life, please bless you, your protecting hand, my children, and my wife.
Thank you so much, Terry. Thank you so much, Terry. Now, many of the guys that he started in the fire department with became lifelong friends. And one of these friends is here today, and I'm honored to introduce retired Fire Chief Milt Wilson.
Don't worry, it's a very large type. At the risk of repeating a few words that Derek has said, I'll go through my script here. I need to work from a script or I'll start rambling on. So I'll just say hello to everybody. As introduced, I'm Bill Wilson, retired fire chief, and I've been gone for ages. So hello to everybody. I'd say hello in Ukrainian, but I could never quite get it right. So. Glenn requested that I say a few words about Jerry and try to remember some of the humorous things that happened over our career. The more I thought about it, I found that most of the funny things that Jerry said were after he had some mishap or accident or hurt himself, some health issue. He always saw things in a positive situation. He had great humor, and most of his humor was self-deprecating, and he was always kind with other people. I didn't know Jerry before we were in the fire department, but learned that he was from South Oshawa, south of the tracks, as he'd like to say. Quite a few number of our firefighters were from south of the tracks, and there's kind of too many to name, but there was a lot of them. People from south of the tracks had a great European heritage. And if the virus wasn't with us today, Jerry would want lots of pierogies, cabbage rolls, shish kebab, and lots of hard drink. Beer, hard drink. So when you do go home, because we can't do it here, have a toast to Jerry. I'm not sure what the Ukrainian toast is. Cheers. I think it's Budmo. I'm not sure. Something like that. So not to repeat too much of what Derek said, Jerry started his career in the alarm room, and he came out as a firefighter when he turned 21, when I got to know him. We did our tours on the ambulance. Back then, they were big green Cadillacs, designed like hearses. Jerry liked to call them meat wagons. We worked at different stations and were drivers and firefighters over the year. Back in those days, we only had 1 or 2 breathing apparatus on each truck, so there was a scramble to see who would get those. Most of us had side jobs. Jerry, over the years, worked delivering oil. There might be some guys here that did the same thing. He also worked putting in pools with some other firefighters. And during this time, we were all saving money by putting wood stoves in our houses and saving money on the cost of oil and electricity. Well, this was one of the causes of Jerry's many mishaps. And I didn't mention that his middle name wasn't Lucky. He was taking some wood down to his stove, fell down the stairs, and this led to many physical problems that haunted him over the years through his neck and his shoulders and his back. But he kind of took the situation with humor, like always, and he figured that the oil gods were after him for burning wood. So that's what he told me. So Jerry was, Derek mentioned, Jerry was involved with the Firefighters Association, the Muscular Dystrophy Association, the Jerry Lewis Telethon, Fiesta Week, raised lots of money, and he also worked with the Oshawa Folk Arts Council. And around this time, a number of us became involved with the Oshawa Club Carib. Many of the members were from the Caribbean islands, but there was a lot of participation from workers at the Oshawa Hospital, the Oshawa Police at that time, now it's Durham Police, and the fire department. I don't see him here, but at that time, Russell Charter and Hal Leslie from the police were some of the major players in that. And for anybody that was on those trips, I'll let you think about that and reflect, because there was a lot of funny things that happened there. So we went on a number of trips to the islands, mostly Barbados and Trinidad, Tobago. And on one of those trips, Jerry had another one of his mishaps. We were in Barbados, and he was socializing in a room on the 2nd floor, which was right above my room on the main floor. Somehow he disappeared over the railing and landed in the garden in front of my room. Luckily, it was a garden and not pavement, or he would have been done. But he came up with that sly smile of his and that little chuckle and proclaimed that he didn't even spill his drink. Because I would happen to be sitting on the balcony looking at him when he landed there. That was another of Jerry's 9 lives. He also thought it was pretty funny when we almost missed a flight to Tobago during Trinidad Carnival. Our wives and everybody else didn't think it was very funny because they were on the plane and they were closing the door when we showed up. So Jerry had a cottage in Halliburton, and he would often invite his warm weather friends from Club Carib to come up and snowmobile across country ski. He would always look at me, wink, and get that sly little smile and chuckle when some of his warm weather friends were introduced to the delights of an outhouse in February in cottage country. So there's lots of stories to tell about Jerry's life, as Derek said, and his career, but I'd be here all day. Jerry had to leave the department. I was the chief at the time. I had to leave the department early because of health issues. He no longer felt confident going into fires or getting up at night and all the things that went along with that. But being Jerry, the one thing that he really worried about was his fellow firefighters having to risk themselves trying to help him out if he got into that situation. So, as usual, he was always thinking of somebody else. Luckily, at that time, the association, the city, had a long-term disability plan, so that helped get him through to his pension. Around this time, Jerry moved up to the Bancroft area. He reportedly drove school bus up there. And I have to smile when I think of some of the comments he would have made about those kids on that school bus, because you all know what he was like. The comments would have been very funny and dry, but friendly. He was also very appreciative of the people that visited him up in Bancroft, and especially the Charlie Whaling, who's here. Charlie lived in the area at the time. Charlie would look in on him, sort of report back to us and let us know what was going on. Lots of times the stories weren't good. Jerry had a lot of health problems when he was up in Bancroft, and a few mishaps that maybe Charlie might tell you about later, about being out in the shed all night, almost freezing to death. But he was also having the health problems, and that's which led to him losing his leg. When he had the leg removed in Peterborough, he was adamant, he told me, that he wasn't going back to Bancroft because the hip and the doctor wanted him to go back there. And he insisted on coming back to the Oshawa area, which he did. So I visited him when he was in the Oshawa hospital, and then on to Extendicare, and a couple of times Larry Graham, who's no longer with us, went along with me to visit him. Extendicare basically for him was for recuperation after all his operations. He was never really happy with the Extendicare situation. It was basically a shared room, little privacy, a curtain in between. But because of his personality, he made the most of it. Every time I went, he always had a few jokes to tell about his room partners. They were always good. And he had nothing to say but good words about the staff at Extendicare. And they all had good things to say about Jerry. They didn't call him Mr. Skochko, they called him Jerry. They liked him back and forth. He liked to joke with me about getting a peg leg and an eye patch so he could work on his pirate luck. And he also always talked about getting a peg leg and running around in circles. He was always in good humor. He was in a really good mood when he phoned me one day and informed me that he had got an apartment at 1 Bond Street. That's near the courthouse and the YMCA downtown. This gave him the independence he wanted. At Extendicare, somebody was always after you, the staff was there. So this gave him some independence. Again, he had good things to say about the nursing care, people that came into the apartment to look after his various problems on a day-to-day basis. And the staff in the apartment, whenever I went in, it was the same thing. It was never Mr. Skochko, it was always Jerry. They all knew him, all loved him. And it wasn't too long at that apartment building that he moved up to the 7th floor. It was a little bigger apartment, which he wanted, better view. He could see the pub over at Riley's, and he could see the courthouse. And in that apartment, he had an area with his, as Derek said, and I'll say too, he was very proud to be a firefighter. Great career for him. But he had a little room in there, and I used to call it his shrine, sort of like it's over here and up front. And he had pictures of the Cambridge March Fire, platoon pictures. He had pictures of his retirement plaque and pictures receiving his long service medal. So he was really proud to be a firefighter. Around this time, I would take him in his wheelchair over to Riley's restaurant, which is just across the road because it was close. This was before the virus. He would really enjoy getting together with a few of the guys and talking about the old days. His memory was sharp as a whip, and he would always amaze me with things that he would recall that I had totally forgotten. Some of the guys that went over just for lunch with him was Larry Graham, Bruce E. Bradley, Bob Warrington, Andy Lyons, just to name a few. He really looked forward to going on that little luncheon and having a beer and shooting the crap with the has. But this was time for another one of his mishaps. He would take his motorized chair down to Wilson Road and King Street to the Food Basics store, pick up his supplies, and he was pretty seriously hurt when he was hit by a pickup truck driven by a 90-year-old lady. The first time I saw him after that, he looked pretty rough, all bandaged up, and he was hurting. I could tell he was hurting, and he never liked to show he was hurting, but he was. But again, he gave me that sly little smile and that chuckle, and he said, "Well, you know that Christmas song, Grandma Got Run Over by a Reindeer?" He said, "Well, they changed it to Jerry Got Run Over by a Grandma." So I was still joking. He really cherished his independence, and a number of times during the virus situation, I would call him from Costco or No Frills to see if I could pick up a few things for him. But no, he was okay. He'd get down there on his little motorized cart and get it himself. When I heard about his diagnosis of cancer, I gave him a call. He told me about the treatments he was taking, and he was still very positive and realistic, and said he could be around for another 2 weeks, another 2 years, who knows, be positive. He said the treatments hadn't really affected him that much. He hadn't lost any hair, but he was missing an eyebrow. Still joking. That's the last time I talked to him. I know he'd be very appreciative of the people that contacted and supported him. There's too many to name, because I'll name them and then I'll miss a few. But his family, Jeffrey, Stephen, their families, the staff at Extendicare in the hospital, the day nurses that came into his apartment, staff at the apartment, staff at the Whitby Activity Center. He started going over there on the bus and working out over there, trying to build himself up. And he still had this vision of getting his prosthesis and still walking around and getting around. All the firefighters who kept in contact with him, too many to name, but I know he was in contact with Lou Jeffs back and forth, who had a lot of health issues too. And I just wanted to thank today for the association and the honor guard that are here doing what they do. And a special thanks to Glenna. She gave him continual support at all times, all through his health problems, and comforted him, stayed and comforted him during his last few weeks, and made arrangements for today. So thanks to Glenna for that. Just a couple closing things before I sit down. When gabbing with the guys and talking about our health, our morality, politics, what's going on in the world, Jerry would often say when he passed away, he was gonna go to the big firehouse in the sky, where every day is a 24-hour Sunday, where you could cook and eat until you were tired, and then sleep until you were hungry, and then start all over again. He also said, think positive. He said that all the time. No matter what your problems are, somebody else is worse off. And lastly, make the most of today and every day, because you never know when that bus is coming for your last ride. And when you do get home, think about some of the things and adventures you did with Jerry. Reflect on that, and don't forget that toast I mentioned to Jerry. Thank you.
Thank you, Mel, for sharing all of those memories. Now, in addition to firefighting, the outdoors, and animals, Jerry was also very deeply committed to volunteer work, as Milt mentioned. Jerry was very active as the co-chair with the Muscular Dystrophy Association on behalf of the Firefighters Association, helping to raise awareness and donations, and he was also a big part of the Jerry Lewis Telethon production and was involved with the annual Folk Arts Council of Oshawa, including the Fiesta Week festivities and the Firefighters Pavilion. Now, one of Jerry's firefighter buddies, Bob Temple, affectionately known as the Hoss, is also here today and would also like to say a few words.
Well, they've covered everything just about Jerry. I want to thank everybody for being here. Jerry and I started in 1966 in the dispatch. Up until then, they used firefighters, but they brought 4 of us in, Willie Colburn, Joe Hendig, Jerry, and myself, to be full-time dispatchers, and you heard most of that information covered. I'm going to cover a little bit more with Jerry and I were in the union together, and we went on a couple of conventions. Always had a great time with Jerry. One of the things that Jerry would say right now is, I didn't know you liked me all that much with all those nice things you said. Jerry was a king of one-liners, for sure. And he would say something like, what are you all doing here? You could be out fishing or enjoying yourself. But Jerry was just a different kind of person. He was a good friend. Him and I would talk. He and I would talk a lot on the telephone when he was living in Lamab, up on the Detler Road. My wife and I went up and visited him a few times. And I remember going up in the wintertime, and Jerry had his walker, and I said, Jerry, you're burning wood in here. How do you get the wood in? Because he could barely walk. Well, he says, I go outside with my walker, and I pilot my walker, and I wheel it up the ramp and bring it in the house. I said, well, let me go out and get some for you. Nope. He said, no, I'll get it myself. Well, you can come out with me. So we went out, we got some wood, piled his walker, and brought it back in. But Jerry was very, very independent and very stubborn. They went through many of the things that Jerry was part of in his career. In the last little while, when Jerry phoned me up one day and we were talking about having a breakfast in Newcastle, he was interested. So I went up, picked him up, brought him down. He stayed in a hotel in Oshawa. And the next day we went, and he had a great time at the breakfast, met a lot of his old friends, a lot of retirees, and really enjoyed himself. When Jerry lost his leg, he ended up moving, as Milton and Derek said, he ended up moving into Oshawa, first into the long-term care facility there. One day we're talking on the phone, he said, Bob, I got to go up and see my house. And I said, okay. Now, Jerry had lost his leg above the right knee at the time. I said, okay, I'll come and get you. We'll take you up there. Well, I got him outside. I couldn't get him in the truck. Jerry was pretty well dead weight. He was pretty heavy, and I'm not as strong as I used to be. So I went inside, and they were quite upset that I was going to take him up to his house anyways. I don't think his boys were too happy either. But anyways, he's very stubborn. He says, I'm not a prisoner here. And he said, Bob, I want you to take me. So away we went. We got 3 guys. I got 3 guys from the inside to come out, and they got him in the truck. And away we went. On the way up, we had quite a few laughs. Jerry was always full of something to say about something to make you laugh and to look on the brighter side of life. The next time I took him up, he wanted to stop at a couple of places. He had still no leg, but he had sold his place and he wanted some things from inside his house. So he gave me directions. Go into this room, go into this drawer and get this watch, and get this pair of pants, and get this coat and these shoes. One of his other friends was there from one of his local friends, and I don't think that turned out too well for Jerry in the end, that friend, but we had some good times looking around in his house trying to find some of the stuff that Jerry had poked away in corners and underneath things, and we got just about everything that he wanted. He was quite happy when he got home, back to the nursing home with the stuff, and I think we took some to your place, Glenna, and we stored some of his things there at Glenna's. Anyways, we had a great time together, everything that we did. And Jerry was a good friend. I will miss him. I'll miss our phone calls. I'll miss our visits up to Lamab. And in ending this, I'll say one thing. Jerry was a good cook. And Charlie reminded me, as long as there was lots of garlic and bacon involved, he really enjoyed cooking. And thank you very much for all coming.
Thank you so much, Bob.
You're welcome.
Now, while working as a firefighter, Jerry also had his hands full, raising 2 boys, Stephen and Jeff, who are here today with their families. There was always lots going on at the house on Millar Avenue, like Jerry coming home to some unexpected house parties. And he certainly wasn't the dad you wanted walking into your party. At this time, I'd like to invite Stephen Skochko, Jerry's oldest son, up to say a few words.
Hey, man, how are you? Good to see you. It's been a while. Sure. What can I really say? I mean, growing up as a young boy, I mean, what do boys love? Trucks and firemen. I mean, we had it made. We used to go to the fire hall. As a matter of fact, my mom and dad actually met at the fire hall. That's how they met each other. My mom worked there in the office, and obviously she caught my dad's attention. So, yeah, we wouldn't even be here without the fire hall. But anyway, yeah, growing up, we would spend a lot of time. We could go down to the fire hall. The guys would sit around telling stories, and we would climb on all the vehicles and slide down the poles and hit the canteen. And you know, we had a lot of cool things growing up. There was a one time with Milt, actually, and Nancy, and me and my dad. Milt had this old Cutlass. I don't know what year that was, Milt.
A long time ago.
Red, beautiful convertible Cutlass. And we drove up to some place to pick up a fire truck, an antique fire truck, for a parade that was going to be taking place, maybe even for a Fiesta Week. And they brought the truck back to our house on Fairlawn Street, where all the kids in the neighborhood came clamoring over, everybody climbing on it. So yeah, we had a lot of fun times there at the fire hall. I mean, it's a kid's dream, right? So anyway, I mean, other things that my dad really liked to do was he loved to hunt and fish. He loved the outdoors. He loved to get out on his 4-wheeler. I mean, we went on all kinds of moose hunting trips and fishing trips over the years. Spent a lot of time together, so you know, that was a lot of fun. Toughness, well, yeah, he was a pretty tough guy. And very, very independent, like guys had mentioned, you know. Yeah, so I mean, I don't know what else to really say. I miss him, and I wish we had more time with him. But yeah, anyway, thanks. Thanks.
Thanks, Stephen. Now, Jerry met Glenna in 1989, when he was 42 and she was 39. For him, it was love at first sight. Their relationship took off like a house on fire. They enjoyed spending time on Jerry's boat at Rice Lake, which, ironically, was in the marina right next to where Glenna's ex-husband was and had his boat. It was many years later that her daughters found out how Mom knew so much about what they did on the weekend, like wearing their new spandex bike shorts, getting them caught on the, snagged on the docks, and when they were on a weekend at their dad's. Glenna met all of Jerry's friends and liked them immediately, and enjoyed going to dances and weddings, friends' cottages and social evenings at their homes, wonderful fall weekends spent at Niagara on the Lake, visiting family and attending the Wine and Grape Festival. They enjoyed many holidays and family get-togethers, which always involved Jerry cooking way too much, as we all know in this room, and telling everyone, eat up, there's lots more. They supported each other in good times as well as bad. And 2.5 years ago, Jerry surprised Glenna with a beautiful diamond engagement ring. Although very touched, she told him, "You're 72 and I'm 69 and we don't need to get married." He had asked her to marry him many times over the years, but this time he said, "Then we'll call it I'll love you forever ring." And she said yes, and they definitely did. In recent years, although she had her own house, she had virtually moved into his apartment. Jerry got a kick out of telling her family that he had to lose a leg before she finally agreed to live with him, then added with a wink and a smile that it was worth it. Even when they were apart for years, he would tell everyone, "I never stopped loving her." And he never stopped trying to find her again. And although Glenna vowed not to get involved again, she fell for that Skochko charm and passionate determination. You see, Jerry was one of the toughest and most determined guys around. During his firefighting days, he broke his neck and was told he would never walk again. Well, Jerry wouldn't have it. He not only proved them wrong, but returned to work as a firefighter. That determination stayed with him, right to the very end. He never gave up hope or his sense of humor. So, to the life of the party, the king of the one-liners, the master of the grill, animal lover, hot pepper connoisseur, and firefighter. We love you, Jerry, and we miss you, Jerry. And we hope that you are at peace in the fire hall in the sky. In closing, please enjoy the slideshow as we listen to the song Thinking Out Loud by Ed Sheeran. We will then conclude with a bagpipe tribute. Thank you everyone for coming today.
Bluetooth pairing. Bluetooth connected.
Will your eyes still smile from your cheek? Darling, I will be loving you till we're 70. Baby, my heart could still fall as hard at 23. I'm thinking about how people fall in love in mysterious ways. Kiss me under the light of 1,000 stars. Oh, darling, place your head on my beating heart. I'm thinking out loud that maybe we found love right where we are. Or maybe we found love right where we are. And we found love right where we are.
Thank you everyone for being here today. And you're able to mingle while keeping your masks on. Feel free to stay and look at the photos and memories. And thank you so much for everyone coming here today. We really do appreciate it.